Yeah, people wonder what we do here during a training period. And people are here for 90 days. And during that time, there's attention to a regular schedule of daily activities. First thing that happens in the morning is a wake-up bell rings and wakes people up for morning meditation, for morning zazen.
What time is that,
And
sir?
that's usually morning zazen during practice period usually starts at 4:20. So the wake-up bell would ring about a half hour before that, 3:50, 3:45, 3:50, the wake-up bell. So of course someone has to get up earlier to ring the wake-up bell. And actually the abbot and assistants and people, because I'm usually already having morning tea myself at that time. But then people, there's a signal that's we call the Han, a wooden sounding board that has a rhythmic pattern that starts 15 minutes before the zazen formally starts, but people should be in their seat in the zendo, by about 4:10, say 4:15. After that, you're late. So, and we keep track of that. If you don't show up, somebody makes a note of that. If you're sick or something, you send a message, or someone will come and check on you. But otherwise, everyone sits together. So we have group. It's a lot of emphasis on group practice. We do everything together. So that, but it's in silence. So most of the day is in silence. And we sit for, I'll just say roughly a couple of hours. Then we have a period of chanting. We chant some Zen texts. We chant some Buddhist, say, teachings. And there's also bowing and some incense offering that's involved with that. And then we have, most days we go directly to a formal breakfast in the meditation hall, the zendo. Each person has their own set of nesting bowls that fit together, 3 bowls wrapped up in cloth, and so there's a whole procedure. We have verses that we chant to receive the meal. There's an offering that's made to the Buddha of food, and then we open our bowls, and then we take turns being on serving crew. Someone's been in the kitchen from early in the morning preparing a simple breakfast. Usually just one person needs to be in the kitchen for breakfast. And the serving crew comes around, and we have a formal way of bowing to each other and receiving the food in our bowls. And then waiting until everyone's served, and then we dedicate the meal and eat. This is all in silence. Toward the end of the meal, there's a ritual of washing the bowls. So people bring hot water, goes into your bowl, and you have a little cleaning stick that you clean your bowls and dry them with drying cloth. You put it all together, and the excess water gets offered to the various spirits, we say. And then, so we wrap up all our bowls and conclude breakfast. And then we usually go out and do some cleaning, a period of temple cleaning, vigorous kind of 15, 20 minutes of vigorous activity, cleaning up the places that we use every day. Bathrooms, walkways are raked. The zendo itself is brushed or mopped or whatever and cleaned, and then we have a little rest time, maybe half hour before study time. Go into the study hall, and people are reading, studying Buddhist texts. And then either we have more meditation, or someone gives a teaching. So the person leading the practice period would sometimes teach a class. We're studying something together. Or we'd go back to the zendo for a formal Dharma talk. And then another period of zazen before lunch. And lunch would be the same as breakfast, same kind of thing. After lunch, a little break, and then we'd have the work drum sounds, and everyone comes and assembles for work in the afternoon. And usually the work period's relatively short, about 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours. But the idea is, at work circle, that's the end of silence, that's the beginning of when people can talk to each other. But during work, we also say just use functional speech. We work mostly in silence. After the end of work, there's a period of time for bath and exercise that's somewhat flexible. People can do their own thing, and then also there's some conversation possible then, although the baths are silent. And then we go back into silence with an evening service, chanting, and then evening meal, and more evening zazen. So that's the day. So the practice of sesshin is more intensive in the sense that we have silence throughout the sesshin. And sometimes we have a 5-day sesshin, sometimes a 7-day, sometimes a 9-day. And so there's no, we reduce the sounds of the monastery, because the bells that we usually have to signal people for things, the han that calls people to Zendo, we simplify all the sounds, and we have more periods of meditation in the day, and we reduce the work time usually to a little bit of work time, but maybe less than an hour of work time, and so more time for sitting meditation. The teacher gives a formal Dharma talk in the Zendo, usually every day, so sesshin. There's one other thing that happens during practice period is usually someone is designated as the head monk. And so during the course of this 90 days, this is a new development in their training, where they begin to give Dharma talks, they begin to teach. And so it's usually someone who's been training for usually 10 years, something like that. And they have a chance to begin to express their understanding under the guidance of the teacher leading the practice period. So, and at the end of the practice period, the end of the 90 days, we have a shuso, we call head monk ceremony. The shuso in Japanese is Japanese for head monk. So the shuso takes the seat, and everyone in the practice period and other guests, people who have been head monks before, usually come to Tassajara for that event, and everyone asks a question, and the head monk gives an answer. And so that's a kind of a high point of the whole practice, and it's quite wonderful to see, how this person who's been training for some years expresses their understanding in response to, all kinds of questions. And it really brings us together in a way. There's always a very kind of intimate feeling of, oh, here's this person, now we actually can see them very clearly. We've been practicing together in silence for a long time, but now we get to hear from them. So I just want to mention that's a very important part of the training here. And also we also do that at Green Gulch. A little shorter practice periods, not quite as structured. And City Center. City Center, the practice periods are more, I'd say, permeable. People can kind of come and go. Whereas here at Tassajara, you're just here for 90 days. Basically, there are many schools, but really two surviving schools. One is, in Japanese, is known as Soto, and the other is known as Rinzai. there are many Soto temples in many little villages because there was an era in which Soto was established that people went around establishing, and that was part of what they did, and making it, say, more accessible and available to ordinary people. So, Soto Zen is characterized partly by the main founder, who is named Zen Master Dogen. I'll call him Zen Master Dogen. He went to China, came back from China in the early 1200s, and he wrote an unusual amount of writings about his understanding. And then his successors, disciple, so the next, say, 3 generations later, someone named Keizan was sometimes called the co-founder of Soto Zen because he was actually the one who did more of the making Soto Zen practice available more broadly and founded a number of different temples. So Soto Zen is sometimes thought of as a little quieter, not quite as, and maybe a little more subdued and not quite as active in a way, and that we use what are called koans differently. People think of koans sometimes as Zen paradoxes or puzzles or something, but it's really, they're dialogues that are meaningful dialogues that bring out certain aspects of understanding. Started in China, and most Rinzai teachers use a curriculum of koans that they actually ask people to work through as a subject in their meditation. In Soto Zen, generally, we don't have any subject. It's an open-minded sitting without any particular object. Although sometimes your teacher might give you a particular focus to work with in your zazen. And it varies from teacher to teacher, but generally speaking, Soto Zen, we study koans in a different way. We don't use them as say, objects or focus in our sitting. Well, some of the Chinese martial arts emerged from Shaolin Temple, which was also the place where Zen was first established in China. Our first teacher, who came from India to China, Bodhidharma, sat at Shaolin Temple.